afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Volpe Creates Show, the weekly talk show where we talk about video games, game design, and the video game industry. I'm your host, Chris Volpe, joined as always by Mr. Lucas. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing swell, man, on this beautiful Columbus, Ohio Friday afternoon. And then I normally say joined by Baby as well, but she is over there on her tuffet. Oh, no, she's actually right behind me. So I don't know what she's doing, but she may make an appearance later on. But a reminder for folks that are watching, if you want to join us on Discord, you can ask questions. Lucas is monitoring the chat, so feel free to ask questions about anything that you want to know, whether it's video games or game design or starting a game studio or whatever. So just go to volpecreates.com/Discord, and that will give you a link to the Discord channel we're all currently sitting in. So but our special guest this week, friend of mine for I don't know how many years now, but Scott, how are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I'm doing well.
Sweet. So I don't think we have seen each other in the flesh since before COVID. I think it's been quite a while because you weren't able to make it to GDEX last year, right?
No, I think I popped by for a minute. I may have waved at you.
Okay.
But yeah, I was there literally to run an errand because some people were there. Now I wanted to spend more time, but God, I don't even remember. I don't even remember last week. So it's it's been a lot though.
Well, it's good to see you.
Thanks.
I always ask, you want to give just a little quick rundown about yourself for our audience?
Sure. Yeah. So right now I'm the production coordinator at GadgetBot Productions. They're a concept artist studio. We work on a bunch of different designs for games. We've done some awesome work on Call of Duty in previous years and Apex Legends. And we also have a webtoon that we work on that we've been building up quite a bit recently. So we have some incredible artists. Love what they do, and it's honestly it's a privilege to be able to just work amongst them, see what they do, and just kind of keep communication smooth.
Sweet. So you're enjoying it because you're relatively new
Yes.
to them.
Very much so. Yeah. So before this, I was the local PlayStation representative for Columbus, Ohio, and that would entail just going to retailers, making sure stuff worked, everything looked good. We updated branding for whatever new game was coming out. Jumping from that into this was, I thought I'd be ready, and then once I got more into it, I'm like, oh wow, this is nothing's the same. So I have been learning so much. It's been an incredible experience. I'm very, very thankful for it. But yeah, I'm still very much just a junior on that.
That's awesome. Yeah. This PlayStation, I've never really heard of that before. Is that a big deal?
Yeah, it's just kind of just up and coming stuff. They had some new hardware come out. I don't know. Just
Is it
kind
a
of
Nintendo?
fun. Yeah, it's one of them. They're Nintendos that my grandma tried to get, but nobody had any for the holidays, unfortunately.
So no, go ahead.
It was amusing doing all of that branding for the PlayStation 5, honestly. Like, I understand why, like, they still had to do it, even though there haven't been any units in retailers still, just because of the shortage.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was lucky to get one. I got a day one
Nice.
release. Okay. I got one for free because Target sent me one by mistake. So I ended up getting two. I ended up getting two PlayStation 5s. Wow. And that's a whole other story. So I gave one to my friend. But yeah. But we also, when pre-orders went live, like our entire office was on Best Buy and Target, and we were on all the websites, trying to make sure that we got our thing. So
yeah.
Well, let me ask, because you're a youngin. You're sort of fresh-faced. How did you get into PlayStation? Like that's a pretty coveted company.
Yeah, it was hard to believe. So, before that happened, I just did retail jobs, really, which I guess is why I got picked to be the representative there. But after college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up working at Micro Center for a while. Yeah. Like I've known my whole life, like I want to work in video games. I don't know to what capacity. That might not mean anything, but like this is what I want. And I tried getting into like art and game development, and I sucked at both of them. So I just tried to just be knowledgeable about it, and so I kind of just nurtured that through working at Micro Center, honestly, like retailer. But I spent a lot of time just in front of so much technology that I didn't even know existed, and so just kind of helped me just kind of like learn more and just be more open minded about like just how in depth technology media can be. And then, funny enough, after that, I worked at Microsoft for a while, pretty much doing the same thing for the Microsoft product line and spending plenty of time just about Xbox stuff. Um, but in the rounds of interviews with 400 people that applied for that position, I think they decided to go with me, and I I still like couldn't believe that they actually gave me that shot, and it was wonderful. I had so many just great times going to PAX, seeing you guys there, um, just doing events. I think we ran into each other at the they had me help out with the Call of Duty World Leagues when they were in Columbus that one year.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it was just really cool to be able to just get more involved in that sort of thing. Um, and I thinking about it too, I spent a lot of time doing conventions, like running game rooms for conventions. My friend would have a really big one called ShimatsuCon for a few years in Columbus, and I helped run the game room for him. And so I had a lot of involvement in just like running events and stuff. And they seemed to really appreciate that because whenever we would go to PAX or do anything like that, they had to get a huge rundown of like, okay, here's how we do this, go ahead and take care of this. And that all came very naturally for me. Like I had experience in that, which was nice.
Yep.
So,
That, I mean, that's awesome, man, to get that involved in the industry, so young, and to be able to like go to those kind of events and things
mhm.
like things like PAX are great. Same with
Yeah.
GDC and GDEX as well, a little bit, but like they're great ways to just get connected with people who are in the industry that already get it.
Yeah,
Like you don't have to explain anything to anybody.
absolutely.
And like you mentioned the Call of Duty World Championships, because that was down. Was that down in Nationwide? Yeah, I think so. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And we got invited, like we got VIP guests. I think Cody and I
Nice.
went, but we got invited just because like we helped with OSU's getting their kind of game program going, and we were
Mhm.
working with Columbus City Council and stuff, and so we were there. But it was really interesting. I was how to phrase this. I was pleased with like the number of folks that came. Like there was a special VIP box or whatever.
Yeah.
The number of people that came and like hung out for a while. I mean, there was some like, you know, city council president was there for a little bit. Like there were
Oh, really?
some people there. Yeah, I
Nice.
think the mayor might have popped in for a second. He wasn't there when I was there, but um, it was interesting to see those folks. But you could tell that like they were out of their element, you know?
Yeah.
So it was awesome to have them there because they were learning and experiencing something new. But like
Sure.
to throw somebody that doesn't know anything about video games in like a Call of Duty tournament, that's like a whole fucking world, you know?
Right.
And I just thought it was really cool to be able to introduce those folks to the sphere a little bit, give them a little taste because
Yeah.
a big part of what I do, a sizable part of what I do in my day to day, is just getting people in Ohio and the Midwest to even understand what the games industry is. And you're one of my running jokes actually when I'm talking to folks. I'm always like, you don't see a lot of people from PlayStation walking down the street of Columbus. But I was like, but I do know the one guy that's here
The
in
one
town.
guy that walks around Columbus that can say that. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you go to like PAX and stuff, it's just 70,000 people that get gaming and get the
Yep.
industry, and they understand it's a professional industry that is talented, passionate people.
Yeah.
And it's hard, man. Game development's hard. It is,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
there are far easier industries to be a part of, but
100%. Yeah, I love that you bring up PAX too, because that and when they had E3 Public, back in like 2017, 2018, those were two events that I constantly think back on, like these were so pivotal and informative for me, because like being that close to the industry, being able to just like see it and actually talk to people about the industry that know what they're talking about, you learn so much and you just see so many different sides of it. And it's something if you can make it happen, going to a gaming expo like GDEX is 100% just something I think.
GoGDex.com.
um but yeah, like it's always so great to just see the people who work on these things and just celebrate gaming as a whole. There's so much you can enjoy and learn, especially for anybody who wants to get into game development.
Yeah, and it's a really good opportunity to just be able to chat with people. PAX does a exhibitor mixer, which is what we actually at GDEX mirrored that idea on.
Yeah.
Because the first time I went to PAX, we were just there as guests, you know, like we weren't exhibiting or anything. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was exhibiting that year, and they're like, "Oh, hey, you going to the exhibitor mixer?" I was like, "I don't know what that is." And they're like, "Oh, after the show floor closes on the first day, all the exhibitors kind of get together, and there's like free drinks and food comes by and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and it's like an hour and a half opportunity for everyone who's exhibiting there to just chat. Show floor's closed; they don't have to worry about talking to guests or anything."
Yeah.
And so he ended up sneaking me in
Nice.
uh to the show, and it was great because like you could go. I talked to like the yacht club guys because
Oh, really?
shovel
Shoot. Oh, that's
shovel
awesome.
night was like real. I think this was like 2016, maybe 2015.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember the first time I went to. Might even been earlier than that,
Nice.
2014. But anyway, and like everyone's just standing around, right? Like so, shovel night had like just come out a little bit ago and was like a huge success.
Yeah.
And but their team was just there chatting, and they're like, "Yeah, it's crazy that this game has blown up the way it has." Being
Yeah.
able to talk to them, and then usually Sony and Xbox folks stick around, and so you can kind of chat with them. Sometimes they'll let you behind the curtain, and you can kind of see some of the cool stuff that
Yeah.
you guys are all hiding.
Yeah.
But the point of my story is that it's those kind of opportunities, if you're wanting to get into the industry and be involved, are like incredibly important. Just building
Absolutely.
every year. So every year now, since I've gone to PAX, we've actually gone, which is I'm rambling here, but this is kind of cool now to see people who are a part of GDEX grow over time at GDEX and then start going to bigger shows like PAX.
Uh-huh.
So PAX 2019, before COVID, there was like 15 booths at PAX that were like part of the GDEX family that had been GDEX exhibitors before.
That's so good. That's so cool.
Yeah. And so like we'll go as exhibitors with one of them, and then we act as like runners to help them out if they need breaks or they need food or whatever.
Yeah.
But that behind the scenes stuff, and I imagine being a part of PlayStation for several years, you probably got to meet a lot of cool people, I would think.
Yeah, there were some pretty cool moments. I kept thinking back to when you did that exhibitor mixer at GDEX. I got to chat with Damon Hatfield from IGN, which was really really cool. And then that one year that we did PAX, a couple more people from IGN came by. Brian Altano just showed up, shook our hands, hung out and whatnot. And then we would just casually get a bunch of just like devs and whatnot hanging out, chatting with us, and it was I got to really appreciate being at the merch booth that year for PAX, because that was just kind of the hut for everything. So everybody was just hanging out and chatting there. So that was a great time to just socialize, which you bring up a really good point that especially for me in the early years, I never realized just how important networking actually can be. And I think that is just such a huge factor in for me getting to where I am today, just meeting so many incredible people to just help me grow and learn into today.
Absolutely. So I teach at several universities, and I tell my students all the time, like how the biggest thing you can do in school, besides doing your schoolwork and doing well, obviously, is be active. Yeah, be actively involved and engaged in the industry. Go to these events, network, meet friends, and I always say, like, I don't mean networking in this like businessy Wall Street.
Oh God, no.
What can you do for me kind of way? I mean, just go and chat with people. You mentioned Damon. Damon came to GDEX. I went to an IGN. it was a release party for something. I want to say
Uh-huh.
maybe Battleborn or something.
Oh wow.
And
Rest in peace.
I mean, yeah, tear. Um, yeah, I know a couple of people from Gearbox that are shedding tears on it that I've chatted about. But anyway, it was at a bar, right? And like they were doing the showcase and stuff, and like yeah, a bunch of people. Like Brian Altano was there. I think Max was there. A whole
Nice.
bunch of people. A lot of Pierce might have been there.
Cool.
And it was sort of towards the end of the night. And I just saw Damon. He was just kind of standing there by himself, like
Mhm.
looking over the crowd or whatever. And like I just went up to him. I was just like, "Hey, man, I really enjoy your podcast. I love what you do. I throw this expo in Columbus, Ohio. I'd love to chat about, maybe having you out sometime." And I just gave him my card, and we talked for maybe 30 seconds a minute. Like I didn't want to take up too much of his time, and then we just ended up chatting. And now he's come out to GX several times. I mean, I've got a cell phone number, so I can
Nice.
text him. And and I'm not doing that as like a humble brag. I'm just saying like that's how networking works, right?
Right.
Like,
Absolutely. It's
and
yeah.
go ahead.
I was like,
Go
it's like it saying networking, and especially like I thought the same thing when I was younger, just like, oh, networking means like you're having business meetings or stuff. Like, how do you orchestrate those? No, it's literally just say hi, grab a drink, talk to them.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely this air sometimes that like game developers are too cool for you, but no, God,
Yeah. If there's any industry where the people aren't too cool, it's probably ours.
no, 100%. Like God, if you if you ever see me, please just say hi. I love talking to people. I won't shut up. And like a lot of people are just that easy and approachable in the gaming industry. So
I've never met anyone that has been, you know, yeah, I've never met anyone that's been like real standoffish or anything when you go to talk to them. I mean, some people are busy. Like I met the director of Xbox, like the hardware division once, and
nice, yeah.
he talked to me for a couple minutes, but he's like, it's like, I'm sorry, man, I have to go. I was like, I get it, dude.
Sure.
I get
Oh,
it. Like,
100%, yeah.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I've met lots of people that are, if they have time, then they'll just sit and chat with you, and
Absolutely.
like, because that's why everyone's going to these events. They're going to, even like I hear a lot of people that say that like GDEX is almost like a family reunion where he shows up once a year.
Yeah.
And the people you never see accepted GDEX, and then so they get to come and chat. I mean, I met Tim Schafer once from Double Fine, and he was
that had to be cool.
Yeah, I got a photo with him. He's fun.
Nice.
But he was another one that I just talked to for a few minutes, and then he bounced out. Adam Boyes.
Oh yeah. When he was in GDEX, yeah, I talked to him too, and it was so cool.
He was another guy that I just kind of got introduced to, and we started chatting. And they're up in he's in Iron Galaxy now. They're up in Chicago, so it's just a little flight away. But he was like third up at PlayStation.
I think he was the head of third-party relations in PlayStation. Yeah, I still have his business card somewhere. He was so eager to talk.
Yep. So, and that's like he came. I invited him to GDEX. He's like, "Oh, do you care if I like bring my family or anything?" I was like, "No, man. Like, bring whoever you want." And he showed up for the exhibitor mixer, the VIP mixer dance party.
Nice.
And dude, he was there longer than I was. Like when I was leaving, because I was like, oh, I got a bunch of stuff to do tomorrow, and I'd already had a couple drinks, more than a couple drinks. And like he was there, like surrounded by people. You may have been one of them. I don't know, just chatting with him, talking to him, and he was great. He just loved it. And almost everyone is wanting to. And you mentioned grabbing a drink with them. Like that's an important part, not the drinking part, but just knowing. There's like layers, right? Like, hey, do you want to go have dinner? Like, if you're having dinner with somebody at one of those events, it means they want you there.
Yes.
Like, because they could be having dinner with anyone else. And these shows are only like I shouldn't say only, like 4 days is a long show, but
the long weekend, yeah.
Yeah, but that there's only really 2 or 3 nights. So like when I'm going to these events, I'm kind of filling out my schedule. It's like, okay, I know I've got 3 dinners, I've got 3 after work drink opportunities, and you got to kind of fill those in. So if these people are wanting to hang out with you, or if you're younger, and I say this to my students, hang around with somebody like me who's going to bump into or hear about things and
Yes.
end up going to things. So like I went and had sushi with a bunch of guys from a couple of companies the last time I was at GDC,
Yeah.
and it was just hanging around. Folks like, hey, you want to go get some food? Yeah, let's go do it. And one of my
Yeah.
students tagged along, and got to have those sort of opportunities. So yeah, I'm glad that you sort of brought that up or you said that, because I think the networking, the learning,
Yeah.
and then ultimately when you have all those friends, they're kind of like finding jobs for you.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, even
Absolutely.
before, I didn't even think about it, but even before we started this podcast, this show, I threw a job opportunity towards you. Like
Right.
this
Yeah.
was I didn't plan on that. I was just like, oh hey, here's this thing, gonna throw it by you.
I know this guy at this studio. They're looking for people. Like, what's that looking like? I'm like, oh, geez. It's like
Yep.
just everybody knows everybody. That was another thing that really impressed me with some of our artists. How they would talk about like hey, we should outreach. Let's see what studios are working on. Can we help them with anything? It's like, oh, I know this person at 343, or I know this person over here. Like, I just everybody knows somebody in these studios, and then we would hire people on, and we would say like, oh, hey, welcome. We're so glad you're here. And then there'd always be like one or two artists that are like, I haven't seen you since art school. How have you been? It's like,
Yep.
wow, it's such a closely knit network, and it feels daunting to get into it, but it's not like there's no reason to be scared.
Yeah, it is. It reminds me a lot of Columbus, where like Columbus is like the biggest small city in the country, where we're a giant city. We're like the 14th largest in the country. We're larger than San Francisco, both
And we're about to
population
get
and size wise.
Intel.
Yeah,
Like,
we're gonna have Intel, which is gonna be a big thing.
can
But
we
like,
please get a modern GPU? Will that make
no,
it any easier for me? I love my
no.
1080, but like, I want Elden Ring at like max specs right now,
Well,
please.
we're gonna put a pin in that because we're gonna talk about Elden Ring. Don't you
Thank
worry.
you. I knew it was inevitable.
Yeah. Um, but everybody in Columbus kind of knows each other. Like once you start getting into it,
Yes.
and one of the pieces of suggestion or wisdom or whatever you want to call it that I have is, if you want to get in the games industry, I feel like a lot of people, their initial, so they play games and then their initial kind of like industry connect is through streaming and YouTubers.
Uh-huh.
And in general, the larger streamers and YouTubers are not the way to get in and start networking, because they're inundated with people all the time. They generally don't have a lot of time to like they're not the ones you're going to go get drinks with. Like,
No.
chances are you're not going to go grab a drink with like Markiplier on a whim, right?
No.
You never know. I mean, I've met lots of folks in the Markiplier crew before and had dinner and stuff, but
Right.
most of the time that's not what happens. But the developers, the folks like you who are doing we're doing the expo promo convention circuit,
Uh-huh.
community managers, like those folks are the ones
Yeah.
that are going to be easier to kind of get that initial connection in. So you mentioned like breaking into the sphere, the
Yeah,
bubble.
absolutely.
That's in my opinion, that's the way to go. I don't know if you have any other ideas or thoughts on
No,
that.
I know, I agree with that 100%. And like when you're trying like to get into the industry, meeting those people and knowing those people is what like really helps. Thinking about like when we've been hiring artists, it didn't just start with like, oh hey, well let's just throw a feeler out and see like who applies. We immediately started with, does anybody know anybody? And every single person was like, hey, I know this person who's really good with environments, this person's really good with 3D characters. And when you have that network and you're building up your portfolio or just your resume, having those friends and just kind of keeping in touch, even not even just saying like, I need this person to be my friend so that he can get me a job one day, just knowing people and keeping in touch once in a while, um is all that some of these people that we've hired on came from. Like, oh hey, I went to school with this person once. They're really cool. I hope they're well. I haven't talked to them in a while, but I like their portfolio. So just really like networking is so much easier than it sounds like.
Yeah, it should be fun, right? You should be
Well, absolutely. Yeah,
should be
this
chatting with
it isn't a
people.
business. It isn't a business term in the video game industry.
Yeah,
It doesn't shouldn't seem like it, at least.
absolutely. You should be chatting with people about things that you're interested in. I had a student once, we were talking
Yeah.
about getting into the industry, and the student was like, I just don't get it. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you keep talking about like all of these things like networking and soft skills and whatever. He's like, shouldn't the best person for the job just get the job? Like, why do you have to do all this other stuff? I was like, well, think about it for a second. Think about like Bungie. We were talking about Destiny 2 before
Yeah.
we went on. Every time Bungie posts a position, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of applications.
Yup.
All of those people are immensely talented, and eventually it gets whittled down to people who are more or less like a fraction of a percent different in skill level, like technical skill level.
Yep.
So at that point, it's going to come down to things like, are you easy and fun to work with? Are you accommodating to new ideas? Can you take constructive criticism? Are you fun to talk with? I always joke, like, how many jobs have been gotten because the interviewer and the interviewee like seeing? You know,
Yeah.
it's those little weird things that build those connections that move you to the next step. That's what networking should be. You know, mention I reach out like Adam Boyes. I reach out to him once a year. I don't even really have anything to say generally. I just check in and be like, hey man, how you doing? How things going? Just to kind of keep that connect fresh. There's other folks in the space that I just kind of reach out to because I would love to have them come out to GDAX at some point, but I know life is busy. People having babies and all sorts of stuff, you know, like.
Yeah.
But at least you can keep that chat going. So I think that I think that you're right. And how to go about just connecting and meeting with people. And you sort of, I guess, had a crash course in it pretty early on just being in a good spot. Like,
yeah,
that role pretty good.
It feels a bit lucky. A lot of people insist that it isn't, but I still want to just say like it was at least good timing. Like the timing worked out on a lot of stuff really well for me at least.
I have no problem when people, for some reason, people feel like the idea of luck kind of discredits their hard work.
No, not at
which
all.
I get, but no, like literally half of everything that goes on is luck. Like
yeah.
The fact that you like don't get hit by a car walking down the road is like some percentage luck, you know. But yeah, no, that's awesome. So now you're doing some new stuff, doing some producing,
learning so much.
Yeah, I guess going back to something that you talked about earlier, with game design, I think people do get caught up in the programmer artist thing.
Yeah.
I'm either a programmer or I'm an artist, and they don't realize there's a wealth of opportunities.
So much more to it. Yeah, and like I think growing up, especially like gaming now is so astronomically larger than what it used to be. So like me growing up like in school in the 90s and early 2000s thinking, "Oh yeah, I need to learn how to make games or draw or design or animate stuff like that." But now there's just so much on the social side of gaming now. You have community managers, you have social media managers, and then you just have like whole marketing teams, people who just help with events, people who are just social. There's so many like humans in front of the games now that people can talk to. It's no longer as simple as, oh hey, I saw a commercial on TV, I'm gonna run to GameStop and pick this up. It's like, wow, let me go on the Discord and talk to people about this and talk to people who work on the game in that Discord, or I'll go to an event about it now. There's just it's so much bigger now, and there's so many different branching paths in games that just about anybody could get into it. Yeah, I'm not a developer, I'm not an artist, I'm terrible at both, but I'm overseeing it now, and they brought me on because I can talk to people. Usually,
yeah. Well,
yeah. Sometimes I'll get tongue tied and like overwhelmed at how many tasks at once, but like we're all only human.
Wow, dude! If you saw our multivarious like task board, like my God. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's all the things you mentioned, and you know, lawyers, accountants, motion capture people, voice acting is a big thing nowadays. Writing, there's just anything you can think of. There's a role for. So you just figure out your interests, get good at your skill sets. With what you're doing right now, are you Are you doing any? Are you involved at all in like any of the creative directions? Uh, Sometimes producers are also in the creative sphere a little bit.
Yeah, so not too much, honestly. I'm mostly just kind of helping like clarify feedback and stuff. I work very closely with our art directors. So, my one of my friends, the other producer, he focuses a lot on the 2D side, and I do a lot of the 3D work. And
Okay.
so 3D being much more complicated than 2D, because like 2D you're looking at an image. You can understand, like you can look at it and understand, hey, we need to tweak this line or fix this piece of a weapon or something like that. With 3D it's, hey, let's look at the Maya files, let's look at the Blender, ZBrush and stuff like that. We have to tweak this poly here, and like I that's a foreign language to me. Can't I have no idea what they're talking about. Other than a very cursory knowledge. And so when like feedback is sent to us, I'll send it to them, and like we'll talk about it a little bit. And so like I'll understand what they want, but it's mostly on, to answer your question, it's mostly on the art directors to help just kind of take care of the creative side of things. Whereas I'm mostly just kind of making sure that everybody understands what's going on both sides, and that we keep track of this as
Okay.
well. Because a lot of the art directors and artists are, their tasks are this game, this asset, this piece of our webcomic, and they don't see all the organization behind the entirety of GadgetBot. And so we just kind of make sure that we don't leave anything behind on our Trello or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. So Trello is a task management
Godsend.
system. Yeah,
It's a lifesaver.
we started using Hack and Plan, um,
Mm,
which is a game design based Kanban board system.
nice.
And they have a free version if people want to go try it out. It's pretty good. I mean, it's made by a small team and got its issues. We just sort of tried it, and now we're in it. I guess we're stuck in
Nice.
it.
Well,
But
that's cool though.
but it's good. But yeah, for those who are unaware, like producers generally, I would say like they're the ones that are like kind of keeping the train moving down the tracks. They're
Yeah.
coordinating with the different departments. They're making sure that like if there's a holdup somewhere, they can figure out downstream or upstream
Yeah.
where the issue is, and figure it out. But are there other areas that you're interested in getting into? Now that you're sort of doing this, are there other areas
Yeah.
or directions that you want to be involved in?
That's something I'm thinking about all the time, honestly. Just like I move around a lot, and I always just want to learn and grow. At the moment, I don't think there's anything where I'm like, hey, this would be really cool to do. I want to start getting into that. Right now, I'm still just so focused on learning how to be a good producer that I want to make sure that I can get this kind of organization down. But um, just thinking way down the road in a pipe dream or whatnot, it would be cool to get into the more creative side of production, because like there are those producers that they don't just organize the timelines and the projects, they kind of direct in a way in small pieces of each game. And so I think it would be cool to, I don't ever want to see myself as somebody who has to tell people what to do, like, hey, I want you to make it look like this, it needs to have this and this. But like I would love to be able to just kind of get more involved in that side of things on the production side.
Okay.
But as far as other entirely different roles, um I don't know yet, honestly. There are, like we talked about earlier, there are so many different parts of the industry, and they all have something cool about them. So it'd be hard to choose.
Well, I mean, there's no rush, right? You don't have to
Yeah,
choose
yeah.
right now. But that's another thing that I tell my students is if you get into particularly a larger studio, and it's a little different now because everyone's like remote because of COVID, but as that begins to change.
Yeah.
But if you get into a larger studio and let's say I don't know, you're going for 3D art or whatever, there's nothing stopping you from going, if you have an interest in writing or an interest in voice acting or motion
Yeah.
capture, go to those teams and be like, hey, can I hang out with you after I'm done doing my stuff? Can I hang out with you for a couple hours,
Yeah.
a week or a day, and just learn from them?
Yeah,
Use those opportunities. And most of them, like we're all fucking nerds. Like we love talking about what we do. You sit down and talk with like a motion capture artist, and they will talk your ear off all day
Yeah.
about the process.
Yeah, that's something we emphasize a lot at Gadgetbot too with our artists. Like, hey, you're telling us what your expertise is, but we want the artists to grow in their roles. So if people want to branch out of making a character and try their hand on environments, like as well as we can, like we want to create that environment for people to branch out and learn more skills, and that's absolutely something that I think is it's healthy to
Yep.
not tie people down into a specific thing. And I worry about where it seems like there are certain roles where like, hey, you're here because you're good at this one thing, and if you make anything other than this, we we hate you.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely
Just being
some
forced.
studios that want you're.
They
I always joke like you're hired as like the bush guy, right? And all you do is make tree
yeah.
bushes, and you don't. We don't need you to make anything other than tree
I can
bushes.
make flowers too, guys.
You're like, no, no.
It's not just bushes. But yeah.
Uh, so we're a little tight on time because you have a hard stop today, and I want to make sure that you get your appropriate amount of time to uh, vent and glow about Elden Ring. Because I
Oh.
have seen you posting nonstop on social media about how you love this game. Now I haven't played it yet.
Uh-huh.
It's on my list. I've got
Yeah.
so many games that I'm burning
It's
through.
dude, there's so many good games coming out now.
I think Elden Ring might be my spring summer game.
Sure.
But it's all you, man. You want to glow about it?
Oh, okay. I got it. I think like I said on Facebook, and to me it felt like this is a moment of weakness because I'm jumping to a conclusion here. I have played hundreds if not thousands of games. I've been keeping track of all the games I've beaten since college, or like I've been trying to track all the games I've beaten, and I started this list in college and I've been working on it since.
How do
And
you
I think
keep
that
track of it? Just like a Google Doc or something?
yeah, no, I just literally
Okay.
update a Google Doc and I just tally how many games I've beaten, and I think the list is close to 400 now. Um,
Okay.
and I have never felt more just like certain that I am playing one of my favorite games of all time, if not almost definitely. I need to beat the game first, but in a week or two or whatever, you will probably hear me say this is the greatest video game of all time. I cannot get
That
over just
them's fighting words.
I know it's and that's the thing. It's like people will ask me like, "Oh, what's your favorite video game?" And I would always tell them like, "Oh, it's ask me today it's Metal Gear Solid 5. Ask me the other day it's Mega Man Legends 2." Stuff like that. Like I have
Yeah,
like that top 5, but this game just it struck a chord with me.
that's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's such a hard thing. It's felt like a hard thing for me to talk about outside of a very small group of friends because it's still a Souls game. Like it's still,
Sure.
hey, you're gonna get your ass kicked. It's
Are
really
you
difficult. Yeah,
are you a Soulser? Like, have you
yeah,
played?
I
Have you been
am
into the
now.
Souls? Okay.
Only for a year though. So like I avoided those games hard for years just because I knew they were notorious for being super difficult and I didn't want to play a game that was going to make me mad. And I
Yeah.
just kind of like painted
You
this
got
picture. Hmm?
you got to be in a special place where you're like, today I feel like having my face punched in
Yeah,
to play a Souls game.
you're absolutely right because like I avoided the games for so long and kept saying one day I'll give the games an honest shot. And it wasn't until Demon Souls on the PS5 came out that just
Wow,
the stars aligned and I'm like, "You know what?
that is
I'm
recent.
yeah, it really like it came out I'm like, "You know what? I think this is gorgeous. This looks cool. I love the medieval setting. This is it. This is going to be my honest shot at playing these games." And it was hard. I had to get over like I suck at this game. I'm dying constantly. But eventually as I played, I learned, oh, these games are so tightly developed that I know every time that I die, I cannot say like, oh, the game glitched or I don't I'm underprepared or stuff like that. Like, I know it's my fault. The game did such a good job of like making me learn without telling me what I did wrong, and so I grew to appreciate that struggle, and then I just kept playing all of them and was like, okay, yeah, no, these games are incredible. These are my favorites, and I think because I got to play those games first and then get into Elden Ring, I love the game even more because seeing the improvements they've made from the Souls games into this one just hit so hard. They did the open world so well, and just the setting, the amount of exploration. Like I think before this, I probably would have said if I had to pick one gun to my head, Breath of the Wild would have been my favorite game ever because I love Zelda games, and this just does everything I loved about it, but with so much more to do, and everything just feels so tightly knit. And there's no wasted space in the open world. The combat is as good as it's always felt. How much time do we have? Because
Yeah, no,
I'll keep going, but
no,
yeah,
I think that's awesome. You know, you used gun to my head. I always do that. Like gun to my head decision. Chrono Trigger is usually my go-to for
yeah.
my favorite game. I think that game is amazing.
hmm
It's a special game made in a special time.
There are so
Um,
many bangers on the Super Nintendo, like Super
oh, totally.
Metroid, Mega Man X, Super Mario World, Link to the Past. Like those games, I think back, I'm like, those games were basically perfect. They were
Yeah.
so just they never get old, even for being
Final
25 years.
Fantasy 3/6 is
6, yeah,
absolutely amazing.
100%.
Secret of Mana is amazing. Super Mario RPG is amazing. Like,
Yeah,
my first Souls game was Bloodborne. That's
nice.
where I got into it, and I platinumed it. It was
Okay.
grueling, but I eventually did it. I haven't beaten the Demon Souls remake yet for the PS5, but
Yeah.
I'm maybe like 75% of the way through that.
hmm
Um, but I'm excited to play Elden Ring. I hear that there's a lot of, yeah, it sounds like it is the culmination of a lot of From Software's
It really
design sense
is.
and philosophies.
Absolutely.
Um, and it's funny you mentioned Breath of the Wild. Lucas and I were talking about Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I feel like I am a crazy person because like
Yeah.
I played Breath of the Wild and I beat it and I enjoyed it, but like for some reason it has gotten into some people's souls. And it's like this game is the most amazing game ever. And I thought it was great, but
Uh-huh.
for me, I didn't think it was like this absolutely astounding thing. I think the way they did a lot of stuff was cool, but
hmm
I found it kind of like lifeless in a way.
I mean that's fair, and that's kind of why I touched on like it Elden Ring does what Breath of the Wild did, but so much better with not wasting any space. And not to say that Breath of the Wild's world is wasted space, but you touch on a point where it is a little bit empty. There's not a whole lot to do in it besides, hey, I found this
Yeah.
shrine, or there's this treasure chest in here.
And none of the
And
characters are really like, you don't really have any meaningful connections to most of the characters
it, it
they're just kind of around.
Yeah, I would love to see them touch on the story more because when Zelda has a story, it's really good. That's one thing about Skyward Sword that I absolutely loved is it had such a fleshed out story, that and Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
Um, but oh shoot, what was I gonna say about Breath of the Wild? I think the biggest things that made me love Breath of the Wild so much was the way that they did the music and just the visuals, the art side of it. So
Yeah.
visuals
I
were
think it looks
beautiful,
great.
world design was great, and the music just being so minimal while you explored, and the game not constantly throwing a waypoint at you felt really good, and that's something that I loved that Ghost of Tsushima and Death Stranding did as well, where I like open world games with as few waypoints as possible, where like the
Sure.
game wants you to just enjoy the world and wander.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I feel you. I think you and I are, I don't want to say we're one of the few, but we're definitely, I think, one of the people that liked Death Stranding more than a
Oh,
lot of
really?
other folks. Um,
Yeah.
and I get it. That is a hard game to kind of click into.
Yeah.
If you're not in it, you know, you're kind of not in
It's
it.
Kojima untethered, and
Yeah.
I love that I loved seeing a game with full creative freedom. Like not to say that he probably didn't with Metal Gear Solid, but I loved seeing him just make something new.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. I'm very curious to see what he makes next. And
I'm dying to find out.
we could do a whole other
Talk
show
on
about
Kojima.
Hideo Kojima.
Oh yeah.
He's one of my like, can I get him out to GDEX? That would be amazing kind of things.
Talking about meeting people, that was the scariest.
Yeah,
He was nice. His assistant, who was like half his height, and just this sweet lady, she was the one that's like, "Hey, we're really busy. We have to go. I'm sorry," but I still was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I've offended you.
yeah,
You're so nice, but I just like got in your way. I'm so sorry." But then like I ran into them a second time at E3 and I'm like, "Hey, I'm really sorry I bothered you." And she's like, "Oh, that's okay. Do you want to take a picture now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can tell me to do anything. You're so sweet."
yeah. Here's my ATM card. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I remember the first, I want to say like the first big moment when I was playing Bloodborne where I was like, wow, these guys really understand game design and level design. And it's you're walking down this staircase and this like monster, like you're just walking down and it's a real like sharp constraint on the camera, and this
Yeah.
monster just like runs to the left and you're like, oh, I saw you. And as soon as you walk out the door to go like prepare yourself for the monster on the left, one jumps in from behind you, grabs you, and like kills you. And I was like, you assholes knew exactly what we were gonna do when we came down the staircase. And that's how a lot of these From Software games are. They look at every point.
Yep.
And they're constructing these little like experiential narratives.
That is on point with like that's the last thing I'll gush about with Elden Ring is every square inch of that game feels so carefully crafted by a human. Like it's not just like let's just procedurally generate this whole world. Every enemy was carefully placed, every corner. You have plenty of those like, hey, I know there's a monster over there, but hey, there's also one above me and it's going to drop and hit me. It just every square inch of that overwhelmingly wonderfully large game.
Yeah, they're almost like magicians in a way, where it's like a lot of sleight of hand and misdirection of the eye.
Yep.
And then something else comes from the side.
It's great.
I feel very similarly about, and I've had a friend that I've been trying forever to get him to play, but that's how I feel about The Last of Us Part 2. That game is immaculately just conceived and created, and I know there's a lot of hate about it. I think most of the hate is nonsense.
It's silly.
It's like every section of that, like it blows my mind how somebody can play that game and not look at how every inch of every level is like handmade, unique.
Yeah.
It just like games don't exist like that. Like
no.
if in the 90s you showed me The Last of Us Part 2 and be like, this is what games are going to become, I would be like, what the like that's nuts.
It's insane to think about that on the design and the visual side too. Like I remember being impressed by the cutscenes in Final Fantasy VII. Where they were slightly not polygons. I'm like, wow, games are never gonna look this good. They look more real than me sometimes.
I remember being a kid and seeing the change from Nintendo to Super Nintendo with Super Mario World and being like, I don't know if games can look better than Super Mario World. I was like, well, obviously I was a kid, so
sure. I can't wait to see the influence that Elden Ring has, because like the way Dark Souls influenced a lot of games, I can't wait to see this do the same thing.
I think we're definitely seeing a really interesting paradigm shift in game development. I think The Last of Us Part 2 shifted things in a way that like we have not seen the results of yet. And I think that
it's all on the drawing board now, but give it a year or 2 or 3.
Horizon Forbidden West just came out, and I watched I don't know, Video Game Donkey's video on that. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen that one yet. I've avoided looking at it too much. Becca's been playing it while I play Elden Ring. That is my next game after Elden Ring.
One of the things that he mentions that I think him and I might be sort of on the same line here is that it's a part of an older style of game design, that like the Ubisoft kind of style game design that I think is on the way out. Like I think we're moving towards The Witcher 3, which is now what, 2013, so we're almost 10 years.
I think it was 15 actually, because that came out like I got that for myself as a hey, I graduated college, neat gift.
Oh, nice. All right, so we'll say 2015, so we're at 7-8 years. Even that had some like really great level design, character designs, quest designs.
The side quests mattered. Like the story, they had actual stories and like well-written dialogue that like, oh, I had to go inside this house to pick up a pan that this old curmudgeonly lady is yelling about, and like I cared about that. I was invested in a 5-minute side quest versus like what old games used to do, where it's like, oh, I lost my wallet. Go around to the corner, young man. Thank you. And
my wife, like, she loved the cross-dressing elf Taylor. Like that was that was like her favorite character. She's like, I love that guy, and he was a lot of fun. I just feel like that go here. I mean, a lot of games have it, and I just don't know if open world games with something like Elden Ring, Last of Us Part 2 is obviously not open world, but just the way that it tells stories and creates characters. I think that is part of an older style of game design in the open world that we're just. I think we've moved past it, or at least some games are starting to move past it.
I hope we've gotten rid of collectathons like the Korok seeds and the feathers from Assassin's Creed.
Mhm.
Like those, like let's make them meaningful or just don't put them in at all.
Yeah, and I know some people love them, but like Assassin's Creed, Just Cause, Far Cry, like all those things are kind of the same ilk. And like I don't really want to play games where like go here and get a visualization of the map and then go here and collect whatever, and I just think we can do much more interesting things.
Absolutely.
And like you said, in the open, because my understanding is that in Elden Ring the open world isn't like gigantic, but it's like tight and controlled.
Yes, it's a lot bigger than I realized though. Like originally I thought it was going to be like what Cyberpunk said it was doing, where it's like it's smaller but it's more dense. There's just a lot to do at every turn. No, Elden Ring's still pretty freaking huge. Like I would still like I can't compare it to like Skyrim or Breath of the Wild, but it's up there. But it's still dense. It's overwhelmingly huge, but there's still just so much to explore and do.
That's awesome. Yeah, speaking of Cyberpunk, that was supposed to be the golden child, and
it is at one point. It is at what should have been 1.0 now. I went back to it recently after the patch.
I just downloaded
it is
the patch.
much better. I'm excited to replay that eventually.
Yeah, me too. I enjoyed the first time I played it.
Yeah.
Like from a core experience standpoint, but keeping in mind that it crashed every 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And
my game crashed at the ending, and I'm like, cool, I'm just not going to play this for a while.
I actually intentionally reloaded a save because I felt like I was getting towards the ending, but I had like this mental clock. I'm like, okay, I'm about 5 minutes away from a crash. So I reloaded it to like reset the crash timer.
Sure.
I'm sure it was like some memory leak or something. But But anyway, I'm excited for Elden Ring. I'm excited to see what From Software does next. I have this like inkling in the back of my mind that like if Sony wanted to like they bought Bungie, if Sony really wants to just like put cards on the table, you go and buy From Software.
Yeah, that would be a huge one.
I don't know
even just what they've been doing. Like they were mad that they had a chance to buy Demon Souls and they didn't, or like. So they may have had a chance to buy them and they didn't. I don't remember the whole story, but like that's why they like they funded Bloodborne almost out of regret. It sounded like because they didn't realize what they had missed out on. So fund another game. Armored Core. Do like take what they're learning from Elden Ring and like just kind of put mechanics into Armored Core. I want to see another one.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to see another Armored Core, but
I could dream right next to Mega Man Legends 3, Ape Escape 4. Silent Hills.
Oh yeah, that would be another one. Sony should just buy Konami.
Yep.
That's what buy Konami. Bring back Silent Hills and let Hideo Kojima.
So just buy the IPs and just give them back to Kojima.
Yeah,
Konami's executives would be fuming, but that'd be beautiful.
I mean, they're not doing anything with them.
Nope.
Making pachinko machines or whatever.
There's a new slot machine, haven't you heard?
Yeah. Well, I know you got to go, so we only got a couple. First off, thanks. I had a blast chatting with you. Thanks for being on the show. Any ways that people can follow you, keep on top of what you're doing? Anything you want to share or talk about before we close out?
I sure do like posting memes and talking about Elden Ring on Twitter at Scott Lewin. That's pretty much the only social media I really use. Like I'm on Facebook, but I use that even less, save for the one time I had to tell my friends and family, "Hey, I love Elden Ring." But yeah, I don't really switch stream.
When's your Elden Ring tattoo coming?
It's been in the back of my mind. I'm thinking about it. I need to take a break. I've gotten so many. I'm just like I'll think about it, but it's probably gonna happen.
Yeah, I've been saving up for. I've had an idea for one for like 15 years.
Ooh.
I just haven't gotten around to it. Just life gets busy, man, and then
yeah.
You just kind of
pandemics happen.
Pandemics happen. But again, man, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for being here. For everybody else,
for having me.
Thank you for watching. As always, you can go to volpecreates.com/discord and join our Discord group. We stream every Friday at 1 p.m. EST. And on behalf, I guess, of myself, Chris, baby who's asleep on the floor, Mr. Lucas, how are you?
Well.
Good to hear, man.
Yep.
Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week.